Beautiful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. I love the fact everybody, a bunch of people were early. You know, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. That's the military. And we also believe in getting started right on time and not waste your time. This is going to be great. For those of you who don't know Mike, I've got him spotlighted right here on the page. So he gets to be big while the rest of us are small. But Mike has been, we've been doing business with Mike since what, Mike, 04, 05 when we started doing business together?
02.
Oh, two. There we go. All right. So 20 years now. So we now count our time in decades. Stacey and I have been using Mike. He's definitely a trusted ally partner, and we appreciate everything he's done. Well, he has some great information here for you today because, as everybody knows, all hell is breaking loose with the interest rates, right? The interest rates are going up. And what's probably happening to you, because it's happened to Stacey and I, is we have some people that are bailing out of the market because, well, interest rates went up, right? So their payment of what they could have bought a year ago even now is a couple $100,000 less, right? It's crushed their buying power. And so they're not getting what they want because what's happening with prices on homes? Home prices are still going up and they're going to continue to do so. People are still going to make appreciation, especially here in Central Ohio. As we know, real estate is hyper local. You want to use that term with people, let them know, like, don't worry about what you're reading in the national headlines. Worry about what's happening in your neighborhood hyper locally, and we can show them how real estate's still a great investment, even with higher interest rates. But here's the thing. People don't buy price, do they? They buy payment. Just like when you buy your car, you don't buy the price of the car, you buy whatever the payment is on it. People are payment buyers on these big purchases. Mike has some amazing solutions for you. This is stuff we haven't rolled out, Mike, in what, 18 years, 16, 18 years since the last time we rolled out this kind of stuff?
Right.
So Mike is going to take it from here. I'm going to have everybody mute your lines, keep it nice and clean. We're going to give you a chance to answer questions, but I'm going to have Mike get at it. We are recording it. And then afterwards, you can jump off after he's done with this, but this is going to be worth your time. So pay close attention. Stacey is here. She's in the back because we got the video on. She's going to hide in the background. Oh, there she is. There's the queen. All right. So let's get at it, Mike. I'm going to mute myself and go to it, buddy.
Well, thanks, Jim. Thanks, Stacey. Good morning, everybody. I reached out to Stacey and a couple other of our key partners yesterday wanted to explain on the lender side why you're seeing so much pressure on the lender side in regards to interest rates. And then the question is, well, can't we buy down the rate? Can't we find a way to do a 2-1 buy down or get the customer's payment down lower so that they can qualify? And there are some things that as a lender, we have to meet the points and fees testing, and it's TRID testing that makes sure that the APR doesn't exceed a certain threshold or the points and fees don't exceed a certain threshold. And those points and fees are 3%. And you think 3% might be a lot, but it's not when you factor in situations where you have a $350,000 loan and you've got seller concessions, let's say even of $10,000. You think, wow, that can pay everything on the closing and buy down the rate substantially. Not in today's market when there's only, up until this week, there was only a 5% coupon and a 5.5% coupon that lenders can sell loans to. A coupon is what we can price loans into, and you cannot exceed more than 1 1/8 over and above the coupon. So if the coupon was 5%, we couldn't go more than 6 1/8, or 5.5% coupon, we couldn't go more than 6 5/8. All that pressure, and it's called compression in the margins, was forcing lenders to not have any room to do any lender credits, to do any buy downs. And then when we're taking the points that we're getting, because now seller concessions are coming back into the market, well, that's great that seller concessions are coming back in the market, but if you do not write the contract specifically that states seller concessions of $10,000 to go towards points, to go towards closing costs, points, fees, and buy downs, those concessions are not earmarked. And what I mean by that is they have to be lumped into a concession of $10,000, and then all the APR items have to be itemized first before you have amount of money left over to use towards buy downs. But if you put in your contract closing costs, fees, points, and buy downs, I can take that $10,000. Any lender should be smart enough to take that money of $10,000 and put it as bona fide discount points on the seller side. Now it's a seller obligation. Well, what did that just do? That then opens back up the 3% tolerance rule, that now we have more money that we can use to buy down the rate even deeper. Chad, the first person I said to Derek yesterday was, you need to call Chad Wilson immediately, because it makes a huge difference when you have a $150,000 loan and under. 3% is not enough. I mean, you can eat up 3% in tolerance cure very quickly. When $1,495 an average lender fee is $1,500, that's 3% right there on a $150,000 loan. Okay, I mean, it's not 3% total, but there are certain things within the closing cost template and the title company fees that are also APR items that are added in there. So to give you an example, Jim, if I can, I'm going to share my screen. Here's an example of one that we got in yesterday or this week from one of your teammates. But look, can you guys see my screen? Jim, you can see it. Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
Look at the closing cost, the way this is worded. $10,000 seller concessions for buyer at closing. That means that I have to put that on the 1003 application and as a lump sum, and I cannot itemize that because none of that $10,000 is earmarked towards buy down. So therefore, if I had and I'll stop sharing my screen here. If I had a $350,000 loan and a customer that put 5% down, that would be $332,500 loan amount. $10,000 into that loan amount is 3%. So now now I've lost my entire, I can't even use all of the $10,000 because in addition to that, I have to put in my lender fees, all my 800 series numbers, which is box A of your LE, your processing, your underwriting, your doc prep, any origination, those are all APR items. That has to be backed out first before I can use that $10,000. But if I earmark the $10,000 to go towards buy downs, points, fees, and buy down, closing costs, points, fees, and buy downs, I can move that over as a seller obligation. And now if our borrower wants to pay 1% more or even 2% more in discount points, we can buy and drive down the rate even deeper and use now 5% in total versus only 3%. Does that make sense, Jim?
It does. I had one question. So, and it maybe all just goes towards the same spot. Can you earmark it just towards buying down the rate, or does that not really matter?
Well, the whole the money is going to be used towards closing costs. But what we want to do is we want to focus on rate first and buy down the rate as deeply as we can. So if you use that, if you put the statement in there of points, fees, and discount, you're going to get more bang for your buck because it's going to drive down the interest rate greater to get the debt ratio and the qualifications in line better. And ultimately, the payment is going to be what the buyer wants.
And just as an example right now, Mike, let's say that we did that, or that maybe that example you just had up, how far down can we buy the rate and what kind of rate drop are we looking as far as we're going to talk to buyers about it?
Well, let me hold on one second here and share my screen one more time.
And also, Mike, some people may not know what a 2-1 buy down is. Can you describe that for them and actually show them maybe a couple examples of what that looks like?
Sure. First of all, a 2-1 buy down is if the start rate today, we'll get back to this grid here in a minute. If the start rate today is 6.5, what a 2-1 buy down allows is that it's going to buy down that first initial year's rate down to 4.5. Second year rate would be 5.5, and then the third year through 27 will be the 6.5 rate. But to that point, and a good example, Jim, those 2-1 buy downs can only be paid for by the seller or by the lender. Well, guess what? The lender does not have any room in the coupons and in the margins to be able to absorb that cost, so it's never going to happen. And if the seller pays that, that's fine. But if you don't identify those concessions as buy downs, then that money gets lumped together like I was just talking about. Like a 2-1 buy down, how do you pay the 2-1 buy down? If the cost is 2.5 points for that buy down, that's taking up all of our 3% tolerance with our lender fees, and it's going to be very tight to do that. But if you earmark that 2.5% over to seller obligation because you worded your contract properly, it's completely separate from the tolerance fees.
Hey, Mike, can you put the exact language you're seeing that's working in the chat box? When we go to get done here, or you can do it now if you want, but the exact language they need to have for you to use the money most effectively.
I'll verbalize it again.
Okay. And then I'll type it.
X amount, whatever the X amount of closing costs to go towards X amount of concessions to go towards closing costs, points, fees, and any buy downs. That's all it has to say.
Towards
Hey,
closing
Mike.
closing costs, fees, and any buy downs.
Oh, points.
Closing costs, points, fees, and any buy downs.
Mike, got a
Yes.
question. Charlene.
Hey, Charlie.
Sorry, I'm on my cell phone. I'm gonna try and move over to my computer so I can see better. Hey, we, for a few years now, one of our lawyers came up with a statement. He said it was a capture everything. He says closing costs, lender fees, broker fees, and or prepaid items. Does that not cover everything? Because that's what I have my teammates typing in now.
And that was probably written at a time where buy down points were not needed. But in today's world and market right now, we need buy down. We need the concessions to be earmarked towards buy down, so that what we're trying to do is remove those monies out of the fees and points testing. And if we can move it to a seller obligation, it's not a borrower obligation, and it's not within the fees and points testing.
All right, I'll resubmit that out to everybody, make sure they're putting additional verbiage in there.
And
Does
all I'm
that
saying
mean
is
that we could go above the 3% then?
Well, it basically, that money gets earmarked to the side of, specifically to the buy down of a seller obligation. And now you start at 0 and you have 3% again. So you're not going to see the lender pay any closing costs, but the lender can do discounts, not in the rate, but we can do like we do discounts on the $9.95 we take off for veterans, or the $550 appraisal coupon. We can take money off of our front fees, but that's called a lender credit. And a lender credit cannot resolve or fix a tolerance cure in regards to rate. If there's an APR item, a lender credit cannot fix that. You have to drop your fees of your pricing of your rate. So what we found, and what we went to the CFPB, both the NAM and both the Bankers Association, to get clarity on this, is that if it's worded specifically as a borrower paid obligation, it is not involved in the tolerance cures or the fees and testing.
Hey, Mike, are people qualifying on year 1 of the 2-1 buy down, or on year 3?
On a 2-1 buy down, your qualification is still on the year 1.
Just to clarify, so qualifying year 1 or the note rate?
So you're qualifying off the note rate. Your discount is discounting the first 2 years. To be clear, it's the example I gave, 6.5% rate, note rate, that's your qualification. But how do you get that 6.5 note rate down to 6.25, down to 6% or 6 1/8? It's those discount points, but you only have so much money you can spend to buy it down before you cap that points and fees trigger. So move that money over to the buyer side as a seller side as a seller obligation, and give yourself a fresh start. And if the customers have 5% to put down, but they go FHA and they decide to only go 3.5, use the other 1.5 as their own discount, plus the 3% on the seller side.
Awesome.
Hey, Mike, when you talk to buyers that are, and you're being creative in the financing, what are buyers leaning towards, the 2-1 buy down or the rate buy down?
Rate buy down.
Rate buy down.
Rate buy down, because the 2-1 buy down is extremely costly, and it's only a temporary period of time. So you're spending money for 2 years. Why not spend the money for the entirety of the loan?
Yeah, here's one thing there, the 2-1 buy down is really effective. If you've got young millennial buyers that know they have pay raises coming up, or they know they're going to get married, they're going to be adding a second income in the near future, and they know they have these things coming, the 2-1 buy down is super effective to get them in a house today.
Yeah.
And they know the payment's going to go up over the next 2 years, but it's okay because they know they got a pay raise coming in 6 months or a year and 18 months. And they're going to be able to afford, you know, a few, 300, 400, 500 extra dollars 2 years from now. But right now they can't get the house they want. The 2-1 buy down is beautiful for that. We sold a gazillion houses that way, and it was very effective.
So.
And Jim, we sold a lot of houses that way back in the day because there was no provision as to who could pay that buy down. Now today, the buy down can only be paid for by the seller or by the lender. So in a builder world, that's easy because the seller can build it in. They are the seller. They can build in that 2-1 buy down. But from an existing sales a home, the seller is going to have to earmark those seller concessions to go specifically to that buy down. And that's why I'm encouraging you to make sure that you put that verbiage into your concessions. Otherwise, it's not going to help the customer, and you're going to cap out.
So one more question, Mike, or not one more question, but the current question, arms. What are we seeing with arms? Like if we're at 6.5 today, what does an arm look like on a 3 or 5-1 arm?
Guys, there's no bell curve in regards to the margin difference between a 30-year. I mean, look at my screen right now. This is the coupon. This is the bonds, and I got to move your screen over here so I can see it. Look how much the market just fell out last Friday to last Monday. I'm sorry, last Thursday to last Monday. 148 basis points drop in the bond market until what we were waiting to come out, and it came out this Wednesday. If I can move this screen here, hold on, was finally the 6% coupon. So the 6% coupon's out. So we're starting to see a little relief in that market this week once that came out. But there's still not a difference between a 10-1 arm right now. I just priced one out just this week on a $647,000 purchase, 820 purchase, 20% down, 800 credit score, $2 million of assets. Would you take a 5.49 interest rate on a 10-year arm versus a 6 1/8 30-year fixed? There's really no difference in pricing. And we're not going to see that spread until we start to see the rates going up and leveling out. And we're probably not going to see it until we see a 6.5% coupon, which is probably going to come by November.
The Fed's predicted to do another 0.75, right?
Right. The rates tipped 30-year fixed rate on Monday of this week tipped 7.05 average rate. And now it went back down to 6.75 average 30-year fixed rate nationally.
So from a marketing standpoint, so the message that everyone on here wants to get out on their social media to quell the fear of, you know, the housing market's dead and, you know, no one should buy right now because these are terrible rates is, number one, these rates are incredible, right? What has been the average rate over the last 50 years? Is it something like 8.5 or 9% has been the
Well, it's not 50 years yet, so we're not that old, Jim, but I looked at it the other day. It's 41-year average from the Treasury, from the Federal Reserve tracking the rates. The average rate is still 7.25 on a 41-year average. So these rates are not out of line historically. We just are now going to get back into the world of buy downs, points, 2-1 buy downs. We're hopefully going to start seeing a different spread on the 3, 5, and 7-1 arms, which would be great for, like Jim said, the perfect example of a young couple getting started in career and it's the first house or second house and they're going to start edging up on their income stream. Average life of somebody staying in the house is, it's gone a little bit higher. And Jim, you would know this more than I, but before it was an average person would stay in a house 3 to 7 years. They would stay on their loan 3 to 5 years. So as I always say, marry the house, date the rate, find a way to get the rate down and let the seller buy it down as much as they can, and then use your dollars to buy it deeper, because that's going to give you, more bang for your buck. And oh, by the way, they need to get with their CPA. And Chad, You can concur with this, being your other industry that you're in. But if you buy a house, the year that you buy the house, you could write off your closing costs that first year that you're buying the house. So if the seller paid $10,000 or concessions toward buy down, and you paid additional money towards buy down in your closing costs, just because the seller paid for it, it's still an obligation and charge to the buyer. So you get to write off 100% of both sides. Now, and as I advise buyers all the time, if that gets you an extra $5,000 a year in return on your taxes, that's $6,000 a month. If you break that out, now that's a $600 lower payment if you look at things annually versus monthly.
Here's another thing, a message that I think everybody needs to get out on their social media pages to their sphere of influence is this. Even though, yes, today you're going to be paying double what the rate was a year ago. So yeah, you know, I waited too long. I might have missed it. You got to get that out of their heads and make them realize this. You're going to get into the house. Yes, it's going to be a higher rate. Yes, you might have to tighten your belt at different places to get into the house. But the appreciation we're going to see, barring a nuclear war or something like that, but the appreciation in Central Ohio for sure should still continue to go up. So you're going to ride that appreciation wave, which is going to help you offset inflation, which is going on. And what we'll do is we work with lenders that are going to track the rates, and they'll reach out to you along with me to lower your rate and shorten your term here in the near future when the economic conditions exist. You want to get that message out, because what can happen is, yeah, they may pay, let's say they pay 7% right now. Okay. They pay 7%, but in 3 years, we're back down to 4%. You're going to have us reach out to you, and we're not going to refi you back out to a 30-year. You're going to have 27 years left on that mortgage. We're going to refi you to a 4.5% rate on a 20-year.
Right.
So we're going to shorten your term. You're actually going to pay off the house sooner, and we're going to refi you into that. But yeah, you might have to tighten your belt a little bit right now, but in the near future, we're going to refi you, and we're going to shorten your 30-year term and try to help you get that house paid off in 20 years or less. That's how you sell it. And then you can sit them down with Mike, and Mike can show them on the overall interest paid over the entire length of the loan when we refi them in a couple of years here and shorten their term, how they're going to pay tens of thousands of dollars less over the length of the term of the entire loan. And if you don't know how to do that yourself, just get them in front of Mike. He'll sell it. He'll sell the rate. He'll sell the product. And it's going to become very important for all of you to utilize someone with, especially you. Most of our agents, Mike, have been in less than 5 years. And they're going to need to get their people. It's going to be very important to get your clients sat down with a lender so the lender can show them the numbers and all these different options that are out there. And it's going to be important for you to listen so that you can learn, because look, this isn't going to be fixed overnight. This isn't, there's no going back to normal. This is normal. This is the normal rates. I bought my first house at 8.5. You know, I mean, that's just the way it's going to be for a couple of years. So you're going to have to learn this stuff, but don't try to go it alone. Get them in front of Mike or his guys and gals and let them go to it and go to work for you.
Keep in mind too, guys.
And to that point, Jim mentioned before, consumers are focused on their housing budget, their payment. Can they afford the payment? Is that payment worth the investment? Rate is a financial strategy. It's a figure within the financial strategy, and how can that work to get the best payment? And at the same point, how can that work beyond the closing and beyond the monthly payment? And to give you an example, let's just take a 7% rate, 0.07 divided by 365 days, interest factor times $300,000 loan amount equals a per diem times 30 equals their monthly interest times 12 equals, that's a $20,700 deduction that they get at the end of the year with simple math to go outside of standard deduction. And if they can get a return back from their filings and calculate that back in, and maybe $3,000 to $5,000 back in return, that's a difference between an extra $300 and $500 a month coming back, that you have to take that into consideration as to why you're buying a house. Your payment's really not $2,000. It's actually going to be $1,500 if you pay yourself back at the end of the year.
And for anybody who that just made your head spin, that's why you got to get your clients in front of Mike and have them team up with their accountant and use these allied partners to make this happen. Because what he said is, we used to run this all the time. We would show people the tax savings that they were going to get to help them justify that payment, because people panic over $300 to $500. Look, most Americans are paycheck to paycheck. They just are. They have too much month at the end of the money. It happens all the time. And so by being able to show that to them on a spreadsheet, or on, in the old days, we used to use pen and paper, it'll help out. But if you're new, that probably made your head like, what the heck is he talking about? Get them in front of the lender. It's gonna be super important. Stacy, go ahead.
Mike, I had a quick question. I know there's a floor to how much we can buy it down. Is there a safe guesstimation when we're out kind of on our own talking about, putting an offer together on a property? Like, how far can you buy the rate down? How many points can we ask for? How much, is there a ballpark?
Well, the concessions are a VA loan. You can only have 4% total seller concessions, conventional and FHA 6 total concessions. But again, if you can only, like on a VA loan, you can only have 2% discount point, 1% origination, 2% discount points. So that 2% discount points on a VA loan might be buying that rate down in today's market, maybe honestly a quarter to 3/8 tops. But if you move that extra money over to the seller obligation and that 3%, and the customer wants to pay an extra 1 point to buy down, or maybe 1.5 points, now you might be able to buy that rate down a half.
So should we communicate with you first to find out how, because there's a floor, correct? I guess that's where I'm going with this. You can only buy the rate down so
You can
far.
only buy the rate down so far.
So
Correct.
that's why I guess what I'm after. So if we're out
And as I said, yes, please get with me on that, because we've already got the customer's file pre-qualified before you're going in and putting an offer in and asking how much should we have in concessions. That's indicative of the customer and what program they have and their credit score as well.
You get questions on there too.
I mean, the placement of the file is going to depict how much money we can buy down. And remember what I said earlier, it's also indicative of what coupon is that customer going into, because you can only go 1 1/8 over and above the coupon, and you only have so much money to work with. So rule of thumb, 2 points in discount in today's world will probably buy you down a quarter to maximum 3/8 in today's bond market.
Which only makes sense if you're going for 30 years or longer. If you're going to be in the house 3 to 5 years, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
So
again,
now
we have the discussion with the client saying, okay, well, you're just going to take the par rate or the higher rate, but how's that going to affect you annually based on tax deductibility to get some of that money back? And do you really want to spend money now? Or do you want to basically, that's why you're buying the house? It's an investment strategy and it's for the long term.
You had a question here from Willie Melendez, says, does that apply to all types of loans, FHA, conventional, VA, or USDA?
Is the question in regards to how we can place the concessions over to the seller side? The answer is yes, if that's the question.
I believe that's the question.
Yes, because TRID and RESPA govern over every loan. So every loan is considered a covered loan, whether it's Fannie, Freddie, FHA, or VA.
Beautiful. And then sounds like it looks like a tax question from Julie Richardson. Are the closing costs 100% write-off for the buyer only? It's probably a chat.
Borrower.
Okay. Borrower on that. Beautiful. All right. So any other questions people might have? It's going to be very important, guys, especially you haven't been doing this, that got in after 2010, after 2008. It's going to be very important for you to have a lender that you trust, a go-to lender that knows all these different ins and outs and will explore all these with your buyer. Buyers are going to be going online. They're going to be going to, Rocket Mortgage or whatever. They're just going to punch in some stuff online. And that type of automated system is not going to be able to give the personal attention to that a lender is going to be able to do for you. So here's the numbers. The numbers are terrifying. the sales are off 22.8%. 22.8% sales are off year over year in real estate right now for pending contracts. Now, what does that mean? That means basically one out of every four pretty much are gone. So almost 25% off. Imagine doing 25% less business this year. That does not have to apply to you. I'm telling you right now, if you sharpen your skills and you let the people work for you that are out there, it doesn't have to affect you. But the realtors that are trying to go it alone and they're not putting the proper message out to their sphere, they're going to starve. We've seen it before, but you do not have to. Trust me, when the market crashed in 08 and things like that, there were agents that starved and a lot that got out of the business because they were unwilling to up their skill level and they were unwilling to learn new techniques and dig into it and find the business. And we don't want that to happen to any of you. Go ahead, Mike.
Somebody asked me the other day if this is anything indicative or similar to 2008. I said, absolutely not. In 2008, overnight, all the lenders are gone. And those are all the subprime lenders and all the unique lending programs are gone, but you still had your A+ paper, your conventional products. Today, it's like a knife in your side being twisted because the bond market and the A+ and the conventional files, which is trickling down to the GSEs, the agencies, the Fannie and Freddie and FHA and VA, all of them are being impacted now differently than what it was in 2008. And just the other day, I saw a statistic on Google search, the highest rated search ever in history, and you guys can look it up, it just happened this week, was housing market crash, Google search, higher than COVID searches just happened this week. So people are focusing on it and they want to know how can they be in a position to better their family, to get back some of the, you can't control the rate, but you can manipulate the rate. There's always a way to drive that interest rate down and get some of that interest rate back. And driving it down with whether it's biweekly or bi-monthly payments to reduce what that interest rate is, or the tax deductibility to get the money back. And those are the things that we talk about in those counseling meetings, and to understand what are their goals, not only just to get to closing, but after their closing.
Looks like Charlene has a question. Go ahead, Charlene.
Can the clients streamline refi with no cost through you in the future?
Nobody's crystal ball is working, and right now I can't build in any closing cost or lender credits out, any premium pricing. There's no such thing as premium pricing where if my rate today was 6.5, I can sell a 7% rate and give a customer 2 points and absorb 2 points in their closing costs. Today I can't do it. So for me to answer that question, we don't know what's going to be 6 months down the road. But if we went 2 years back, we could do a rate and term refinance for a customer, a streamline, and absorb all of their closing costs because the margins were there, because the market was there.
Okay. But potentially in the future.
That's the goal. Obviously, the goal is to minimize or reduce or eliminate the closing costs, or have the consumer, whether they do a refinance or not, they're going to make their mortgage payment on the first of next month. If we can find a way to refinance their loan and use that mortgage payment as the total closing cost, and they bring that payment to closing, that's how we look at it if we cannot build in any lender paid fees. Jim, anything else that you want to touch on?
Anybody else any questions? If not, we can end it there. It's great stuff. So I'm not sure who everybody uses. Obviously, you have your own choice to use whatever lender it is you want to use. But I can tell you this, because Stacey and I did it starting 2 decades ago with Mike and his group, is that they know how to talk to the buyer. And Stacey and I used to call it looking for deals underneath rocks, flipping over rocks, looking for deals. You're not going to be able to be an order taker anymore, which is what it's been for the last 10 years. You're
Right.
going to have to know how to do the business. And that's okay. Even if you are a brand new agent, you just started today, All you have to be good at is a connector. Can you take your prospect and put your prospect in front of seasoned professional like Mike? I can't recommend them strong enough to go through with your person and come up with a solution, because I can tell you this, even as long as Stacey and I have been doing this, we're not on top of the rates and the programs as much as Mike and his people are. And I can tell you, for Stacey and I, everybody we have, we're going to slam in front of them before we get them out there and taking a look, so that we know they're comfortable with the payment, where we're at, and we've explored every option for them to make sure they're good to go. And if you do this, you will be heads and shoulders of all the other agents out there. And the other thing is your messaging. You've got to get the proper messaging out there on social media. People are terrified, and all they're hearing is rates are up. And so everybody's just like, okay, well, it looks like I'm out. I'm going to sign another 2 year. I'm going to sign a year lease or something. It'll be a huge mistake for them, because here's what's going to happen. Rates will go back down to 4.5%, but the price on their house has gone up 25%. We're going to see appreciation, especially here in Central Ohio, continue to go up, because it's not just driven by rates, it's driven by supply and demand. And we have all these industries moving here to Central Ohio, people with lots of money, people with cash to buy, and they're going to be driving the appreciation rates.
And to Jim's point, as the Fed is making these adjustments to offset the inflation, they have to raise the rates. But as they raise the rates, it's going to trigger and force a recession. Once the recession comes in, then they have to lower the rates. So all indicators from the Mortgage Bankers Association and National Association of Mortgage Brokers are indicating and being told and talking to the Fed and the economists that are out there. We're looking at a refinance boom in the fourth quarter of next year and the first quarter of 2024, because they have to slide those rates down. So when we say buy the house, date the rate, do you want to put that money into the rate today, or invest into the house and then refinance it within 12 months when you've got some equity and you can maybe get out of that PMI factor? And today, a perfect example, I encourage everybody to take PMI. Why? Because it's ultra cheap right now. It's still amazingly cheap if you put 5% down and you've got a good credit score. I did one the other day and it was $21 on a $400,000 house on 85% loan to value. Why wouldn't they take the PMI when it's also a deduction on your taxes? Lots of things that we can do, but to Jim's point, encourage the customer. And Charlene and I've talked about this. We've got to get with these customers early. We've got to educate them. We've got to get home buyer seminars to get them to understand the process. And I'm more than happy, our team, an entire team, more than happy to come down wherever you need us to be to do home buyer seminars and bring them in and have an open forum. But it's a phasing effect. Have a general meeting with them as to what the market is and what the steps are to buying a house and things of that nature, and then do one-on-ones with them the next week or the week of, and then have a follow-up meeting. And if they're coming back to those meetings, they're really encouraged. They're motivated.
They're going to be very motivated, because one of the things that's happening also is rents are spiking and skyrocketing. And so unless all these millennials and Gen Zs want to move back home with mommy and daddy, they're probably better off to buy a house, but they need to find a way to work their way around it. And it might just be a 2-1 buy down or some type of solution that Mike has, and also showing them the benefits of a tax write-off. Because most millennials who are first-time home buyers, there's a ton of them out there. 9 million a year for the next 7 years are turning average home buying age of 33. They need to get into the market, and they've never had a tax write-off. They've always just done the standard deduction. But having a house is going to help them with that, and we can help show them how to use their tax refund to make their mortgage payment. Any other questions? We'll let Mike get out of here.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate all of you. Thanks, Jim.
Kyle, you had a question, Kyle?
Yeah, Mike, probably don't need you to stick
Thanks,
around.
Mike.
To pitch this at Jim.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Go ahead, Kyle. You have a question?
Okay, so this all sounds cool for the buyers. How do the sellers perceive this? What is this going to do to my ranking at the negotiating table?
Yep. So, so sellers who haven't sold before, it's their first time selling, they're like, what do you mean I'm going to pay for the buyer's closing costs? I'm not doing that. And what we have to teach them and educate them as a listing agent is, look, this has been done many, many other times when interest rates have gone up in the past. You just haven't seen it in over a decade because we haven't had to do it because interest rates have been artificially kept low. And that's exactly what's happened. The rates have been artificially kept low. And eventually, it's kind of like taking a beach ball. If you take a beach ball and you force it underwater, what happens after a while if you hold it down there long enough? Do you know what happens, Kyle?
Well, I haven't been to the beach as recently as you, but yeah, it pops back up.
It comes back up. And when it comes up, does it come up slowly or does it come up violently?
Oh no, that sucker's fast.
Right? So it's a picture you're putting in the seller's mind and say, so here's what's happening. Rates are going up. Do you think it makes buyers more able to buy your house or less able to buy your house if rates are going up and skyrocketing?
Right, less able.
Okay, so you get them to answer. See what I'm doing? You get that, make them answer. So now it's not you telling, you're asking questions, but you're leading them down a path, right? It's less able. So these products are ways for lenders to help buyers buy a home, more buyers able to buy your home. If there's more buyers able to buy your home, what does that do to your home's value? If there's more buyers competing for it,
Right, it goes up.
it goes up. Okay, so we're not coming up with this for you to pay for the buyer's costs. You're making it so more buyers are able to buy your house to help keep your price up. It's just the way you frame it with them. And you're going to get some hard-headed people say, I'm not paying for anything. Say, well, okay, we'll be looking for a needle in the haystack then. And those sellers will end up eventually, if they don't find a buyer, having to reduce their price. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to take some sales skills. And there's all kinds of classes out there and things like this on scripts and dialogues and things to use. And one of the fun parts about this whole thing happening, and when I say fun, is the agents like you guys who are on here. Congratulations, by the way, everybody got on here. If you're watching it as a recording, congratulations to you. You're willing to invest in your career and to learn something new. So congrats to you. You're the ones who are going to make it and who are going to survive. There is going to be a shrinking of the number of agents who renew their license starting in about January, when that bill comes in and they're like, I can't sell anything. Nobody I know wants to buy a house. Well, that's crazy. The transactions are still happening, and then those people won't renew their license. So there's going to be less competition, which is good news, right? Shrinking, we call it the agent count. As the agent count shrinks, there's less agents in there trying to eat pieces of the pie, but you're going to have to invest in yourself heavily. In fact, Warren Buffett said that the number one thing you can do in a recession is invest in your skills. No matter what industry you're in, is to invest in your skills, and you're going to have to beef it up, and everybody's going to have to go hard in learning how to generate business, because the business is there. You're just going to have to get your unfair share. And if you're brand new, you can still make it and thrive, not just survive, but thrive by leveraging people who have more experience than you, leveraging your allied partners, and beefing up your marketing. Any other questions before we wrap up? I'm super psyched all the people got on here. By the way, before you jump off, there is an Ohio EXP Military Network Zoom at noon. If you want to jump on, it's going to be really short and quick. Stacey and I, as you know, are state squad leaders for that. If you want to hear how that's going to work, we finally got all the slides and artwork and things like that, but it's today at noon. It will be recorded if you can't jump on there. If you have a downline, share this Zoom when I post it. I'll put it on YouTube. Share it with your downline. This is very important stuff for people to not just survive. I don't want to use the word survive. That sounds to thrive in this contraction of the market that we're going to experience. Balancing. It's a better word, right, Stacey? Balancing of the market, not contraction. That's a negative word. Balancing of the real estate market. Any other questions before we wrap it up? Doesn't look like it. Congrats to everybody for jumping on. Make sure you share this thing out to everybody. And if you want to find the, you texted already the Zoom. Okay, perfect. Stacy sent it out on our mass texting service. And that's probably how you guys all ended up here. So great stuff. Good luck to everybody out there. And as always, you're never bugging Stacy and I. Hit us up. If you ever need us for anything, we're happy to jump on Zooms with your clients. If you have buyers that have questions and things like that, please put us on there with you. That's what we're here for. You haven't really needed us that much over the last few years because it's been sort of order taking. You might need some of this gray hair we have now to help you land the business. And that's what we're here for. Okay.
Thank you guys for organizing this. Thank you.
We're gonna be doing a bunch more of it as it comes out.
Thank you.
See you guys.